буде голосніше.
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. Chapter 6. Talons and Tea Leaves. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione entered the Great Hall for breakfast next day, the first thing they saw was Draco Malfoy, who seemed to be entertaining a large group of Slytherins with a very funny story. As they passed, Malfoy did a ridiculous impression of a spooling fit, and there was a roar of laughter. "Ignore him," said Hermione, who was right behind Harry. "Just ignore him. It's not worth it." "Hey, Potter!" shrieked Pansy Parkinson, a Slytherin girl with a face like a pug. "Potter! The Dementors are coming! Potter! Woo!" Harry dropped into seat and at the Gryffindor table next to George Weasley. "You fit here's a timetable," said George, passing them over. "What's up with you, Harry?" "Malfoy," said Ron, sitting down on the other side of the glaring of his Slytherin table. George looked up and to see Malfoy pretending to faint with terror again. "That little git," he said coldly. "He wasn't so cocky last night when the Dementors were down our end of the train. Came running into our compartment, didn't he, Fred? Nearly wet himself," said Fred with his contented quip of Malfoy. "I wasn't too happy myself," said George. "They're horrible things, the Dementors. Set up freeze your insides, didn't they?" said Fred. "So you didn't pass out, though, did you?" said Harry in a low voice. "Forget it, Harry," said George brazenly. "Dad had to go to our Azkaban one time, remember, Fred? And he said it was the worst place he'd ever been. He came back all weak and shaking. They suck the happiness out of the place, Dementors. Most of the prisoners go mad in there. Anyway, we'll see how happy Malfoy looks after our first Quidditch match," said Fred. "Gryffindor versus Slytherin. First game of the season, remember? The only time Harry and Malfoy had faced each other in a Quidditch match, Malfoy had vehemently come off worse. Feeling slightly more cheerful, Harry helped himself to sausage and fried tomatoes. Hermione was examining her new timetable. "Oh, good, we're starting some new subjects today," she said happily. "Hermione," said Ron fondly as he looked over his shoulder, "they messed up your timetable. Look, they've got you down to about 10 subjects a day. There isn't enough time. I'll manage. I fixed it all with Professor McGonagall." "But look," said Ron laughing. "See, this morning, 9 o'clock divination, and underneath, 9 o'clock Muggle studies." And Ron leaned closer to the timetable to sleep. "Look!" underneath it. "Aftermaths, 9 o'clock. I mean, I know you're good, Hermione, but no one's that good. How are you supposed to be in 3 classes at once?" "Don't be silly," said Hermione shortly. "Of course I won't be in 3 classes at once." "Well then, pass the marmalade," said Hermione. "But, oh Ron, what's it to you if my tablet's a bit full?" said Hermione snapped. "I told you, I fixed it all with Professor McGonagall." Just then, Hagrid entered the Great Hall. He was wearing his long, moleskin overcoat and was absent-mindedly swinging at a Deadpool cut from one enormous hand. "All right," he said eagerly, pausing on the way to staff table. "You're my fits ever lesson. Right after lunch. Ring lessons, 5 getting everything ready. I hope it's okay. Me, a teacher, honestly." He grinned broadly at them and headed off to the staff table, still swinging the polecat. "What was his been getting ready?" said Ron, a note of anxiety in his home. The hall was bound to empty as people headed off towards the first lesson. Ron checked his timetable. "What a way to go! Look, divination's at top of North Tower. It'll take us 10 minutes to get there." They finished their breakfast hastily, said goodbye to Fred and George, and walked back through the hall. As they passed the Slytherin table, Malfoy did yet another impression of fainting fit. The shots of laughter followed Harry into the entrance hall. The journey through the halls and halls covered. He had never been inside the North Tower. "There's got to be a shortcut for me," Ron panted as they climbed the 7th long staircase and emerged on a familiar landing where there was nothing but a large painting of a bare stretch of glass pane on the stone wall. "I think it's this way," said Hermione, peering down an empty passage to the right. "Can't be," said Ron. "That's south. Look, you can see a bit of the lake out of the window." Harry was watching the painting. A fat, dapple-gray pony had just ambled on the grass and was gazing nonchalantly. Harry was used to the subjects of Hogwarts paintings moving around and leaving their frames to visit each other, but he always enjoyed watching them. A moment later, a short, squat king in a suit of armor had climbed. By the look of the glass stains of his metal knees, he had just fallen off. "Aha!" he yelled, seeing Harry. Ron and Hermione. "What villains are those trash pants upon my private lands? Come to scorn on my full pensions. Draw, you knaves, you dogs." They watched in astonishment as the little knight tucked his sword out of his scabbard and punished him. I beg you won't. The knight seized his sword again and used it to brush himself back up the knight with the grass though. He pulled with all his might. He couldn't get it out again. Finally, he had to fall back down in the grass and push out his wiser to mop his sweating face. Listen, said Harry, taking advantage of the knight's exhaustion. We're looking for the North Tower. You don't know the way, do you? A quest! The knight's rage seemed to vanish instantly. He climbed to his feet and shouted, Come, follow me, dear friends, and we shall find out our goal, or less shall we perish bravely in the charge. He gave the sword another fruitless tug, tried and failed to mount the fat pony, and cried, On foot then, good sirs and gentle lady, on! And he ran quickly, loudly, into the left-hand side of the frame, and out of sight. He hurried after them along the corridor, following the sound of his arm. Every now and then they spotted them running and rolling the picture ahead. We have started hard, the worst is yet to come, yelled the young knight, and they saw him reappear in an alarming group of women and clothes. His pictures hung on the wall for a narrow spiral staircase. Laughing loudly, Harry, Ron, and Hermione climbed the tightly spiraling steps, getting dizzier and dizzier, until at last they heard the murmur of voices about them and knew they had reached the classroom. Farewell, cried the knight, bobbing his head into a painting of some sinister-looking monks. Farewell, my comrades in arms. If ever you have need to noble heart and steer sincere, call about Sir Cadogan. Yeah, we'll call you, muttered Tron as the knight disappeared. If you ever need someone mental, they climbed the last few steps and emerged onto a tiny landing where most of the class were already assembled. There were no doors of this landing. Ron nudged Harry and pointed at the ceiling, where there was a circular trapdoor with a brass plaque on it. Sybil Trelawney, divination teacher, Harry read. How are we supposed to get up here? As though after such an exclamation, the trapdoor suddenly opened, and a silver ladder descended right at Harry's feet. Everyone went quiet. After you, said Ron, grinning, so Harry climbed the ladder first. He emerged into the strange-looking classroom he'd never seen. In fact, it didn't look like a classroom at all, more like a cross between someone's attic and an old-fashioned tea shop. At least 20 small circular tables were crammed inside it, and surrounded by Schnitt's armchairs and fat little buffets. Everything was lit with a dim, crimson light. The curtains at the windows were all closed, and the many lamps were drenched with dark light scrapes. It was snifflingly warm, and the fire which was burning out the crowded ventilators the shafts running around the circular walls would tremble around the circular walls with dusty-looking feathers, stubs of candles, many packs of tattered paling cards, countless silvery crystal balls, and a huge array of teacups. Ron appeared at Harry's shoulder, and the class assembled around them, all taken in whispers. Where is she? Ron said. A calm voice came suddenly out of the shadows to soften Mr. West. Welcome, it said. We're nice to see you in a musical world at last. Harry's immediate impression was of a large, glittering insect. Professor Trelawney moved into the firelight as they saw that she was very thin. Her large glasses magnified her to several times their natural size, and she was draped in a dusty spangled shawl. Innumerable chains and beads hung around her spiny neck, and her arms and hands were encrusted with bandlets and rings. Sit, my children, sit, she said, and they all climbed awkwardly into the armchairs to hang onto puffies. Harry, Ron, and Hermione had sat themselves down at the same round table. Welcome to divination, said Professor Trelawney, who had seated herself in a winged armchair in front of the fire. My name is Professor Trelawney. You may not have seen me before. I found that descending too often into the hustle and bustle of the main school clowns in my inner eye. Nobody said anything in answer to this extraordinary pronouncement. Professor Trelawney delicately rearranged her shawl and continued. So you have chosen to study divination, the most difficult of all magical arts. I must warn you at the outset, if you do not have the sight, there is very little I will be able to teach you. Books can take you only so far in this field. With these words, both Harry and Ron glanced at many witches and wizards, talented though they are in the area of loud bangs, and smells and sudden disappearings, are not unable to penetrate the field to mysteries of the future. Professor Trelawney went on, that enormous gleaming eyes moving from the face to an enormous face. It is a gift to you, you boy, she said suddenly to Neville, when all the struck was over. Is your grandmother well? I think so, said Neville tremulously. I wouldn't be so sure if I were you, dear, said Mrs. Trelawney, finally put it almost on Neville's ears. Neville looked. Mrs. Trelawney will be covering the basic mathematics divination this year. The first term will be devoted to the reading of tea leaves. Next term we By the way, my dear, she shot suddenly at Parvati Patel, a red-haired man. Parvati gave a startled look at Ron, who was right beneath her, and edged her chair away from him. In the summer term, Professor Trelawney went on, we shall progress to the crystal balls. If you have finished with firemen's, that's it. Unfortunately, classes will be disrupted in February by a nasty bout of flu. I myself will lose my voice, and around Easter, one of our number will leave us forever. A very tense silence followed his pronouncement, but Professor Trelawney seemed unaware of it. I wonder, dear, she said to Lavender Brown, who was nearest and shrank back in her chair, if you could pass me the largest silver teapot. Lavender, looking relieved, stood up, took an enormous teapot from the shelf, and put it down on the table in front of Professor Trelawney. Thank you, my dear. In assembly, that thing you are taking. It will happen on Friday, the 16th of October. Lavender trembled. Now, I want you all to divide into pairs. Collect a teacup from the shelf, come to me, and I will feel it. Then sit down and drink. Drinks only to the right side. Swirl this around the cup 3 times with the left hand, and turn the cup upside down on the saucer. Wait for the last of the tea to drain away, then give your cup to your partner to read. He will interpret the canisters of pages 5 and 6 of Fog in the future. I shall move along you, happy and instructing. Oh, and dear, she caught an apple by the arm and made to stand up. After you've broken your first cup, would you be so kind to select one of the blue patterned ones? I'm rather attached to the pink. Sure enough, Neville had no sooner touched the shelf of teacups than was tickled of breaking china. Professor Trelawney swept over to him, told in a dustpan, and brushed and said, one of the blue ones, then, there, dear, if you won't mind. Thank you. Then Harry and Ron had their teacups filled. They went back to the table and tried to drink the scalding tea quickly. They swirled the dress around and Professor Trelawney had instructed him. Then they drained the cups and swept them. Right, said Ron as they both opened their books and pages of 5 to 6. What can you see in mine? A load of soggy brown stuff, said Harry. The heavily perfumed smoke in the room was making him feel sleepy and stupid. Broaden your minds, my dear, and allow your eyes to see the past London. Professor Trelawney cried through the gloom. Harry tried to pull himself together. Right, you all got a wonky sort of cross, he said, consulting Fog in the future. That means you're going to have trials and suffering. Sorry about that, but there's a thing that could be sung. Hang on, that means great happiness. So you're going to suffer, but you're very happy. No need to in an art testing. If you ask me, said Ron, as they both had to stifle their laughter. Professor Trelawney gazed into the direction. My turn. Ron peered into Harry's teacup. His forehead blinked with effort. There's a blob built like a bowler hat, he said. Maybe you're going to work for the Ministry of Magic. He turned the teacup the other way up, but this way it looks more like an acorn. What's that? Scanned his copy for regarding the future. Wonderful, unexpected gold. Excellent! You can lend me some, and there's a thing here. He turned the cup again. That looks like an animal. Yeah, if that was his hat, it's like a hippo. Now, a sheep. Professor Trelawney whirled around as Harry let out a snort of laughter. Let me see that, my dear, she said repellingly to Ron, sweeping over and watching Harry's cup in front of him. Everyone went quiet to watch. Professor Trelawney was staring into the teacup, rotating it in anti-clockwise. The falcon, my dear, you have a deadly enemy. But everyone knows that, said Hermione in a loud whisper. Professor Trelawney stared at her. Well, they do, said Hermione. Everybody knows about Harry and you-know-who. Harry and Ron stared at her with a mixture of amazement and admiration. They had never heard Hermione to speak to teacher like that before. Professor Trelawney pulled magic clock. She lowered her huge arch to Harry a cup again and continued to turn it. The club, an attack. Dear, this is not a happy cup. I thought that was a bowler hat, said Ron sheepishly. The skull. Danger in your path, my dear. Everyone was staring, Trix despite, and Professor Trelawney who gave the cup There was another tickle breaking trunk. Neville had smashed his second cup. Professor Trelawney said to the rapid archer, let her head get had and her eyes closed. My dear boy, my poor dear boy. No, it's kind of out of sight. No, don't ask me. What is it, Professor? Said Jean Thomas at once. Everyone had got to their feet, and slowly they crowded around Harry and Ron's table, pressing close to Professor Trelawney's chair to get a good look at Harry's cup. My dear, said Professor Trelawney's huge eyes opened dramatically, you have the grim. The what? Said Harry. He could tell that he wasn't the only one who didn't understand. Dean Thomas struggled in him, but Lavender Brown looked pleasant, and nearly everybody else clapped their hands to announce a horror. The grim, my dear, the grim! Cried Professor Trelawney, who looked shocked that Harry hadn't understood. The giant, spectral dog that haunts Chartrias. My dear boy, it is an omen, the worst omen of death. Harry's stomach lurched. The dog on the cover of Death Omens and Fluorescent Blots, the dog in the shadows of Magnolia Crescent. Lavender Brown clapped her hands to their mouth too. Everyone was looking at Harry, except Hermione, who had got up and moved along to the chair of Professor Trelawney's chair. I don't think it looks like a grim, she said flatly. Professor Trelawney surveyed Hermione with mostly dislike. Don't forgive me for saying so, my dear, but I perceive very little aura about you. The little aspect to the renaissance of the future. Seamus Finnegan was stealing his hat. It looks like a grim if you this, he said. This was almost a check. It looks more like a donkey from here, said Lily to the left. Then you all finish deciding whether I'm going to die or not, Harry said, taking even himself by surprise. Now nobody seemed to want to look at him. I think we'll have the lesson here for today, said Professor Trelawney in her mistiest voice. Yes, please pack your stuff away, thanks. Silently, the class took their teacups back to Professor Trelawney, packed away their books and closed their bags. Even one was avoiding Harry's eyes. Until we meet again, said Professor Trelawney faintly. Fair fortune be yours. Oh, and dear, she pointed at Neville, you'll be late next time, so mind your work as to a car to catch up. Harry, Ron, and Hermione descended Professor Trelawney's ladder and the winding staircase in silence, then set off for Professor McGonagall's transfiguration lesson. It took them so long to find her classroom that early that they had left divination, they were only just in time. Harry chose a seat right in the back of the room, feeling as though he was sitting in a very bright spotlight. The rest of the classes kept shooting across the classes. He was only about to drop dead at any moment. He gladly heard that Professor McGonagall was telling them about animagic wizards who could perform it will into animals, and wasn't even watching whether she transformed herself in one of the eyes to a tabby cat with spectacular markings around her eyes. Really, what has got into you all today? Said Professor McGonagall, turning back into herself with a faint cough, and standing around them all. Not that it matters, but that's the first time a French transformation has not got applause from a class. Everybody had turned towards Harry again, but nobody spoke. Then Hermione raised her hand. Please, Professor, we're just going to have first divination class, and we were reading the tea leaves and... of course, said Professor McGonagall, suddenly frowning. There is no need to say any more. Miss Granger, tell me which of you will be dying this year? Everyone stared at her. Me, said Harry finally. I see, said Professor McGonagall, fixing with her beady eyes. Then you should know, Potter, that Sybil Trelawney had predicted the death of one student a year she is to arrive at the school. None of them has died yet. Seeing death omens in her favorite way of greeting a new class. It is for not for the fact that I speak ill of my colleagues. Professor McGonagall broke off as they saw the nostrils had gone white. She went on more calmly. Divination is one of the most impressive branches of magic. I shall not conceal from you that I have very little patience with it. True seers are very rare, and Professor Trelawney. She stopped again, and then said in a very matter-of-fact tone, You look in excellent health to me, Potter, so you will excuse me if I don't tell you off your homework today. I assure you that if you die, you need not hand it in.